I'm Turk Strongman at Thuranki Ramacharaka. Thank you for selecting this video on deep character change. Guess that's what it will be. We'll see by the end of it. Before I continue, though, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And while doing it, activate the notification bell feature. Share the joy of the channel with others. Start with giving this video a thumb up so that others can see that. Comment courteously below. Now, deep character change. Where am I going to start? Well, here's my point of departure. Into the point. Well, the point, I guess, would be, what's it take? And what will it do? What's it take to cause it to happen? You know, what will cause it? What's it take? What are its parameters? And how do you know when you've done it? And what results may that have? There, I'll start with my own case. I'll tell you it like this. At this point in my life, I feel that my expression in the world, my expression, what I express, to what, the quality and quantity of my expression from inner to outer has been very thwarted through life, very stifled. It's minimal. It's barely there compared to the way it could have worked out and felt like it should work out. It needed to work out for its fulfillment and satisfaction, to satisfy its capacities, its own capacities. Early on, there were obstacles galore to it. Being able to fully come out, for the expressive side of my sojourn in the cosmos. There was more there than what has been permitted or actualized. There were a lot of restraints put on it, constraints. It was attenuated. It was stepped on, trodden upon, jumped on, pulverized, held back, turned around, pointed back inside, beat up. Weasels tore my flesh. The devil had my soul. No, it wasn't that bad. Well, maybe at times it was. All right, well, okay, so now I feel there'd be no way, just, in the time left in my life to unpeel all the layers of crud on top of it and experience it and learn it and develop it and bring it forth. How? That's jumping tracks midlife, I mean, how do you do that? Well, I'm suggesting here that it would at least, there'd have to be a deep character change to start with. Because right now I'm caught in a web. I'm in a web. It's been webbing for a good while. It's my own web of way of being. Now, I can remember, perhaps you can in your own life, remember periods earlier on, if you're middle-aged or more, especially, periods from earlier in your life in which, during which you were barely the same person, really, so to speak, right? You were like a different person, man. Different beliefs, different ethical stance on things, a different way of being, man. Such that, really, what comes down, what it comes down to, the parts that you can say, yeah, that was me, is the everlasting I-ness, core of being, the part that you call I, when you say, yeah, that was me, or it was I. That's about the only connection you have with it, other than the stuff that's in your memory, too. But you don't seem connected with it anymore. You barely relate with it. Barely remember it. Totally different state of mind, totally different everything. It's almost like it was a different person back then than you are now, with just that one common thread. I, the inner I, capital letter I, remains constant, but nothing else did. Really, there's not much left. Maybe some habits, like how you put on your shoes, how you tie your shoes, things like that, But the beliefs, the values, the actions, the thoughts, the manner of a personal atmosphere in public, all of that, quite different. Pretty much changed. I would say there was some deep character change that took place. But how do you make that happen in a direction when you are in the web, in your web? How would you go about that? Could you do it? If you want out of the current state of affairs, personally, like you're in your web, you're in your thing, and maybe it has progressed in a certain direction, and your whole way of being, your thinking, your reactions to things, your stimulus response thing gone, your manner of thinking, your thought skills, your beliefs, what you consider to be important or not important, what you think of the world, all of it, right? That's where you're at, okay? But maybe it's not what you want. It's not what you wanted. There's some lack, deep lack. Like, this is not what you expected of expressing yourself in the world. Or, I don't have the state of consciousness that I would, this is way off track here, my state of consciousness, or the overall joy in my life is low. But I know I have the capacity for much greater. Whatever your thing is here, joy, contentment, love, consciousness, self-knowledge, expression. These are basic core desires that all eyes have. And they can either be at a point of feeling well satisfied. They, all of them together, or one or two or more, or not, such that you feel you're stuck somewhere in your way of being, which is not what you wanted, or what you expect, or what you know could be. Instead, you will at least have to affect a deep character change. What does that involve? Well, it at least involves close examination of the things that drive you to action, your mental things that drive you to action. Because between those mental things, which are called motives, and the actions, there are a couple other things. Where there is motive, there is interest. And where there is interest, there is attention. And where attention is placed, energy follows. And where energy goes, there tends to be action, especially when we remember that motives are strong enough to drive us to action because of their emotional content. And then the other way, that's from motive to action. Looking back one step from motive, we have desire. Those desires, no matter what they are, they ultimately root in those core ones that I was naming, which root pretty closely in the I itself. And so does will, the power of will, the power to push toward things, the power to push things, drive them along, drive something. And then there's desire. We were just talking about desire. That has a drawing tendency, bring things to it. Those two must work together and temper each other. Right down there at about the level where they conjoin, as just different phases of the same thing going on, rooted in the I itself, upon which they depend for their existence. The I that they serve. So some change must be made in how we think about our motives. That's a good place to start. That's the interface between our most inner layers and our most outer layers, our motives, emotionally endowed enough to drive us to action. So they should be closely examined. That would be a good place to start. Closely examined as to their quality. What are they? Could they be updated? Could they be revised? Could some be omitted? Could some be focused on that haven't been focused on yet? Of what order are they? Are they of high order or low order? What's their content? What desires are they most closely stemming out of? That give emotional content, etc. Can they be altered? Can they be upgraded? If you were going to act and think and feel by choice from this moment forward in connection with your known motives, like this thought comes from this motive, then, or in accordance with this motive, right now I feel this, I think this, I do this. That kind of awareness I'm talking about. And make sure those motives are in their most refined state. That's a good place to affect character change. And it must be a constant effort, attention to doing it, interest in doing it, motive for doing it. Where does this lead? Well, this should ultimately lead to further satisfaction, in the least, increased satisfaction of one or more of those core desires. Given enough time, but the web must be taken apart and replaced piece by piece. And it takes time, it takes diligence to such attention to refined motives, for example. Right? So if you feel like I do, like there could have been a lot more to what you've done, or to how you feel, to your fulfillment, your feeling of expression in the world, all that you could have done with that. But you're stuck in a position with it that's just like barely chugging along. In fact, you can barely connect with the could have been, or should have been, or might have been. You barely connect with it. although it was in the front of your thoughts earlier in life, perhaps. Now it's just buried, and you saw this process happening, you felt it, and you ignored it, whatever. You adjusted. Your character change is needed to jump tracks. And it's a rather deep thing. If you'd like to affect a deep character change in your life, and in a sense, eventually out of it, not even be the same person you are now, really. For practical purposes. Different person eventually. Connected by your memory. Connected to the outcome. The current state with the future state. Connected by memory, however vague by then, because of all the change, interchange. And by that sense of I, having been the same I all the way through, and really everything else has shifted. Starting down deep. Where all deep change happens. At first, to get things started. All right. That's it. I can't think of anything else. I guess I'll run out. I'm going to slow down. About to go to sleep. Okay. I hope I kept your attention. You like the video? Thumb up. Just thumb up just to share the video with others and like show them, hey, it's worth looking at. You might get more out of this than I did or whatever. Just like, here, this one's worth it. All right, so thumb up. Subscribe. Click the bell to get notified. Comment courteously below. There is that. This is Theron Q. Ramacharaka, and I'm Turk Strongman. Be well. Mm-hmm.